Creation prophecy. The prophet Isaiah wrote that the end is declared in the beginning. The beginning is found in Genesis, verse 1, chapter 1, in the creation account. What you are about to see is how the creation account reveals God's plan for mankind and everything he will accomplish. God's creation could have been created instantaneously, but as you know, it was not. God intentionally marked 7 days for 7 specific creation events. There's a reason that God not only marked 7 days for creation, but why he also specifically chose to do what he did on those days. These 7 days and corresponding events describe and detail a 7,000-year plan for mankind. God's whole plan for man, with corresponding timing, is found in the first chapter of the Bible. Before we reveal the details of the creation prophecy, we first need to illustrate an important prophetic principle. The 1 day as 1,000 years prophetic principle. This principle teaches that when the Bible mentions a literal day, depending on context, it can be prophetically connected to a span of 1,000 years. This is not a new concept. Some early Christian writings describe the 1 day as 1,000 years principle in biblical prophecy. Epistle of Barnabas, chapter 15, verses 3 through 5, 100 CE. He speaks of the Sabbath at the beginning of the creation, and God made in 6 days the works of his hands. And on the 7th day, he made an end, and he rested on the 7th day, and he sanctified it. Consider, my children, what this signifies, that he made an end in 6 days. The meaning of it is this, that in 6,000 years, the Creator will bring all things to an end. For with him, 1 day is 1,000 years. He himself testifies, saying, Behold, the day of the Lord shall be as 1,000 years. Therefore, children, in 6 days, that is, in 6,000 years, all things shall be accomplished. And he rested on the 7th day. He means this, that when his Son shall come, he will destroy the season of the wicked one, and will judge the godless, and will change the sun and the moon and the stars. And then he will truly rest on the 7th day. Irenaeus 150 CE. For in as many days as this world was made, in so many 1,000 years shall it be concluded. This is an account of the things formerly created, as also it is a prophecy of what is to come. For the day of the Lord is as 1,000 years, and in 6 days created things were completed. It is evident, therefore, that they will come to an end at the 6,000th year. Methodius, 300 CE. For in 6 days God made the heaven and earth, and finished the whole world, and blessed the 7th day and sanctified it. So by a figure in the 7th month, when the fruits of the earth have been gathered in, we are commanded to keep the feast to the Lord, which signifies that, when this world shall be terminated at the 7,000 years, when God shall have completed the world, he shall rejoice in us. Then when the appointed time shall have been accomplished, and God shall have ceased to form this creation, in the 7th month, the great resurrection day, it is commanded that the feast of our tabernacles shall be celebrated to the Lord. Notice how these early writers connect this concept back to creation. But where do we find this 1 day as 1,000 years principle in the Bible? In 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 8 through 10, we see that in the context of the day of the Lord, the teaching of a day being 1,000 years long is somehow connected. Peter presents this 1 day as 1,000 years principle in the context of the biblical creation account to address skeptics ridiculing how long it is taking for the Messiah to arrive. Now we must ask the question, where did Peter obtain this 1 day as 1,000 years principle? Peter doesn't say exactly, but we do find a similar verse in Psalms. Psalm chapter 90, verses 3 through 4. You return man to dust, and say, Return, O children of man, for 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night. As we can see, this verse also associates a 1,000-year period as a day. The author of this psalm is uniquely attributed to Moses by scholars. Where would Moses have understood this concept as 1,000 years as a day? We find a clue in the preceding context, which specifically mentions how man will return to dust. Where are we first told that man will return to dust? We're told this in Genesis 3, and perhaps unsurprisingly, Moses would have been quite familiar with the book of Genesis, since he was the author of it. Genesis chapter 3, verse 19. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Why was Adam told he would return to dust? Because Adam was told that he would die the same day that he ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Genesis chapter 2, verses 16 through 17. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, You may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. This verse has confused many. Adam did not literally die the same day that he ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It appears to be a contradiction. This has led some to suggest, well, Adam spiritually died that day and literally died later. This may make sense in some minds, but God literally defined death as a consequence of this specific sin as returning to dust, and that same death was declared to supposedly occur on that same day. So the explanation of a spiritual death makes sense until one thinks about it for about 15 more seconds. Adam returned to dust much later. We need a better explanation. Since the death related to Adam's sin is clearly defined for us as a returning to dust, and that happened to Adam much later, not the same literal day, then it must be the word day that we're not understanding correctly. The only reasonable conclusion is that God must have not meant a literal 24-hour period in his usage of the word day. It's this quest for a better understanding of the word day in the context of what was said directly to Adam that leads us down a rather fascinating path. We find that Adam lived to be 930 years old until the day he died. Genesis chapter 5, verse 5. Thus all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Adam lived 70 years shy of exactly 1,000 years. Thus, if God was using 1,000 years as a day when declaring to Adam that he would surely die the same day, then that would make much more sense. In that sense, Adam did actually die the same day he ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, if a day is intended to be understood as 1,000 years.